What's up, everybody? My name is Tucker. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the Boston Celtics. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like rating on it and subscribe to the channel as well for more videos just like this one every single day. With that said, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so today I wanted to talk about an idea and a concept that has, I would say, gained steam this season, and that is the idea that the Boston Celtics are not only broken, but that could potentially also lead to them moving on from either Jaylen Brown or Jayson Tatum, who've been kind of the two young pillars of this franchise for the last couple of years, going back to when Kyrie was there and Gordon Hayward and Al Horford the first time. And it was always this promise and this hope for the future. And then slowly, as all those other guys left, now this is just a group that relies entirely almost on Brown and Tatum. And the question has come up this year, is it now time for Boston to explore options in terms of splitting those two guys up and moving on and creating just a different looking roster in Boston? So we're going to kind of explore that concept, explore that thought in today's video. So first, let's kind of talk about the problems, because not only is Boston 16-18, under 500, the 9 seed in the East right now, but their path to the playoffs is certainly not clear, with not only them being barely in the play-in game, but teams underneath them like New York and Atlanta that surely are going to contend for the play-in game as well. But it's even worse because there are teams this year that have been disappointing from a record standpoint, but Boston plays ugly basketball a lot of the times, especially offensively. They are very limited in terms of their perimeter playmaking. There's a lot of isolation, and they're not particularly good at it. And all three of those things I just said can also be said about Brown and Tatum. Neither of them are very good isolation scorers despite high volume, and probably even worse than that, they're not high-level playmakers either. And so for those two guys to have the basketball as much as they do, and for them to rely on them in isolation as much as they do, and not be able to create for others, and not be very efficient isolation scorers, is a huge problem and leads to that ugly style of basketball that we see from Boston a lot of the time. And those factors also play into this idea that they're not very good late in games, and they give up leads pretty easily because they go through these massive scoring droughts if Brown and Tatum aren't making shots, because they don't create a lot of easy baskets. They don't create a lot of baskets out of movement and with a lot of ball screen actions going to the rim and creating easy kickouts like a lot of teams around the league do. Boston is an outlier in that way, and you can blame the coaching on that as they're now on their second coach. But quite frankly, I think it's just a flaw in each of these guys' games that they're going to need to improve throughout the rest of their careers. And that is a major factor in this decision of potentially moving on from one of them, is that they are so similar as players in certain ways in terms of their deficiencies. And there's other issues with these guys as well that have been pointed out. The leadership of each of them has certainly been questioned in terms of the toughness of this group. I don't know that it's fair to boil that down to just two guys, but ultimately, as the best players on the team and the leaders of the team, the expectation is that they're going to kind of set the tone for what this group is gonna be like. And a lot of people feel like they have not lived up to that expectation. And again, that just gets back to this idea of, should you split these guys up? Now, the reasons you shouldn't are pretty obvious. They're both 25 and under. They're both all-star level players. They're the kind of players that teams around the league really, really value. It's not like these guys are 6'1" scoring guards. They're both big wings that can play on each end of the floor, that have a ton of room to grow. Even with all the flaws that I mentioned earlier, isolation and playmaking, you could also view those as positives because they're as good as they are still statistically, while also having so much room to grow in so many critical areas that there's just so much raw and untapped potential that continues to get associated with these guys, in addition to, of course, their age. And at the end of the day, you just have to decide, is it going to work ever? Is there an environment in which Brown and Tatum can coexist together and drive winning basketball? If you don't think that there's a single environment that possibility exists in, then yeah, just move on from them. But I don't think that's the case, because when you look at the history of these two guys together as they kind of matured from third and fourth, sometimes fifth options offensively, to all the other guys leaving Boston and now just kind of ending up with just them, this is not a roster that's well suited to what they do. And I think you should explore some other options. Not that I'm not open to the idea of moving one of these guys eventually, but that shouldn't be your first choice, in my opinion. Because if you had these guys playing with even a playmaker on the level of someone like Mike Conley, I'm not advocating for them to trade for Mike Conley, I'm just using him as an example, some level of playmaking setup guy in the backcourt, I think that would dramatically and drastically change the way we view these guys, because they would be able to work more off of kickouts and more in positions in which they're at an advantage when they catch the basketball rather than having to create that advantage themselves. I think some of the unselfishness that a playmaking backcourt player would bring to the table would also allow them to fully see the floor and trust their teammates more as well and improve that playmaking. And any kind of top-level perimeter ball handler creator guy would be incredibly helpful for Brown and Tatum. And I think that they would thrive in that situation. I don't think it has anything to do with the fact that these two guys can't coexist. I don't think they can coexist in this current environment where it's literally just them that are being relied upon offensively with some Marcus Smart stuff mixed in. However, with another really good playmaker, I think that unlocks so many other things for this group where they can focus more on the defensive end of the floor because they don't have to expend so much energy offensively, where they can improve as playmakers and they're allowed to kind of grow into that role where they can be more efficient scorers and be, really good off-ball players as well, because both of them can space. I just don't know how they make that happen. That's my problem. Is like, primarily, I think you should try other things first before you start thinking about a Brown and Tatum split. Start thinking about, can we move Marcus Smart and this and that? Can we package together some way to get what Kemba Walker was supposed to be for this group? The scoring, playmaking guy that, if you can package some other stuff together, maybe you can also get a player that isn't a liability on the defensive end of the floor the way that Kemba was. And I would just much rather try all those things rather than trade away one of these guys so early. And the bottom line is there's no, apart from the leadership stuff that some people point out, there's no personality issues between these two guys in terms of like one person not liking the other. It doesn't appear as though they're like the absolute best of friends, but there's no real tension between these two guys. And from a basketball standpoint, like I think their fit is cleaner than, for example, Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid's that we've ultimately seen, not work out. I don't think that it's an impossible fit. I think there are basketball scenarios in which these two guys can coexist. And I think really the difficulty in this situation is the team's inability from a resource standpoint to put the proper pieces around Brown and Tatum rather than their fit itself. Like, Boston is just pretty limited outside of like Marcus Smart and some other guys in their ability to improve their roster significantly around Brown and Tatum without moving either Brown or Tatum. But at the end of the day, for me, if the guys get along, if they're under contract for the next couple of years, they're 25 and under, and they're all-star caliber players, I'm not in a hurry to move either of them. I'm open to having the conversation about it. I'm open to discussing in what scenario you would potentially look to make that move. If Damian Lillard did become available, would you consider Jaylen Brown in exchange for Damian Lillard? If whatever the case may be, there's a variety. If Bradley Beal became available and wanted to play with Jayson Tatum, would you make Jaylen Brown available? In what scenarios would you possibly move on from these guys? And what does their ideal long-term fit look like? I think those are completely normal and natural conversations to have as an NBA front office that's trying to put together they're not trying to put together the best team for Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum. They're trying to put together the best team for the Boston Celtics. And having those conversations, I think, is completely normal and completely natural. But there are still a lot of other things that I think they should try, whether they're possible to try or not, given the resources of their roster. I don't know. But they're in the first year of a new GM and a new head coach. There's going to be some growing pains. It's not always going to look great. And I think it's more so a roster around these guys issue than their fit together, although I can see their limitations in this current ecosystem if they can't get another perimeter playmaking type guy to really unlock the rest of what these two guys, by the way, do really, really well. They're still both very, very talented players. But yeah, that's going to be the end of today's video, and I thank you guys very much for watching. Once again, my name is Tucker. If you missed any of my previous videos, be sure to check out the boxes on screen, and like I said, subscribe for more videos just like this every single day. With all this thing said, hope you guys have an awesome rest of your Tuesday, and I will see you all next time.